there does come a point when you choose to bring yourself back into alignment and to prioritize integrity over whatever status quo you are currently in. The life that exists on the other side of that decision, that is the life you want to live. Please listen to me and JJ. We know it.
Welcome to Badass Softie, a podcast for leaders who are unapologetically ambitious and want to lead with heart because you're allowed to chase big goals without losing what makes you human. I'm your host, Dr. JJ Peterson, and today on the show, I am sitting down with Jen Hatmaker. Just saying those words makes me so happy. For those of you who know Jen is a New York Times bestselling author of her brand new book, Awake. She is also a speaker, a podcaster, a longtime voice for badass softies everywhere who are really trying to live with integrity, courage, and compassion. And she has lived the past few decades in front and center of the public eye in so many ways. She's been on television. She has these books. She has these huge communities that she leads. And she has gone through ups and downs in all of it and worked very hard to maintain integrity even when it cost her something. And we talk about that today because if you know Jen's career, she's had some ups and downs. And so I want to let you know that on today's episode, we are going to talk about some of our kind of past theology because we both grew up in the evangelical space. We are going to talk about some LGBTQ issues and kind of our thoughts on that. But all of it is really grounded in us trying to figure out in our journeys how to maintain our integrity and align our values with the way that we're living. And even when that is going to cost us something. And I will tell you, over the years, it has cost Jen a lot, but she has also built an amazing life out of those moments of hardship. And, you know, that integrity and strength and honesty and vulnerability runs through everything for her. And I love this interview because she carries it over here as well, and you get to hear that. And so if you've ever been in a place where you've wondered, like, you know, it might cost me too much to speak up. It might cost me too much to step into being who I think I'm supposed to be. And you're in that kind of on that, almost in that sensitive spot on that cliff saying, do I take the leap or not? I really believe today's conversation is going to be a joy for you. And so I am just so honored and so thankful that she came on our podcast. And especially after being on this book tour and all the things she got to do, you'll hear a little bit about that. But I know you are going to love today's conversation with my friend, Jen Hatmaker. I have been looking forward to this day for so long. I adore you so much. And I've been wanting to have you on the Badass Softie podcast from the beginning because you and I actually met and worked together about 10 years ago. I was just with our friend Leslie, and she was like, we met 10 years ago. And I was like, oh, okay. We've known each other a decade.
Wow.
But I followed you before, like many people. I too was an early blogger. Probably everybody remembers don'tsqueezethejj.com. Nobody remembers that, but
it's in the lexicon. It's in
the lexicon of early bloggers. You can find it in the museum. But I followed along with you in the early days of blogging. I followed along with you in the evangelical space that you were rising up in. And I came out of the closet a few years before you came out, proverbially. And I have watched you rise and fall in your career over and over and over again. And also be incredibly human, be incredibly kind, be incredibly gracious, and rebuild yourself over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And it has been so inspiring for me as someone who also has had to be in a space of rebuilding myself in different ways. And I've watched the way that you've carried yourself in public and private life. And continue to just take it to the next level every single step while also remaining human and kind and vulnerable and leading others in that same space. And so the reason, like from the very beginning, I wanted you on this podcast is because you are, to me, the epitome of a badass softie in all the ways. So I'm so excited you're here.
Nice. Jay. Thank you.
It's true. I'm trying not to cry. I'm a little jet lagged, but That
is so nice.
It is, Jen. I mean, it's just been, your early writings, even in blogging and your books, they were so vulnerable and so honest in a way that didn't feel like taking advantage of the vulnerability but also just like inviting people in to say, hey, you're not alone. Like, yeah, this sucks or this is hard. Let's have fun and bring some joy into this, but you're not alone. And so we'll get into all of kind of some of the phases of things. But the first question I want to ask you is, so you just were on a huge book tour for your new book, and which is right behind you on the screen. I can see it there, awake. And you had... This is the question I wanted to ask. So don't answer it right after I ask this question, but what was the best thing about being on tour and you're not allowed to say meeting the people? You can't say meeting the people. You can't say
that's
that.
Fair.
Because
that's fair.
I watched, you like become best friends with Gayle King. I watched, while you hosted the Opry and Martina McBride, and you were interviewed by Maria Shriver, and you were picked for Oprah's book club, and you were at Reese Witherspoon's event. I mean, come on. You had what was the pinch me most exciting kind of moment of all of those things?
God, when you put it all together, it really was a lot, wasn't it? If I'm just going into my bones and like, what was the moment that I was just like, what is happening? For me, it was probably hosting the Opry. Now, I am a long time country music fan. That's the music of my life. And so when the Opry had come and said, it's our 100-year anniversary this year, we're having guest hosts. You want to do it? I was like, holy shit.
I am in.
Like that's my Super Bowl. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. And so then they're like, we're building out the schedule right now. Cause this was it was in the summer. And they were like, is there any, do you have any requests essentially for artists? And I was like, is this a joke? Is this a joke? And so I was like, Martina McBride? If you would have told 19-year-old Jen. And then there is, I included just little excerpts of song lyrics, almost all country in Awake, just as little teeny interstitial, links in the chain. And there's a song that I discovered last year by Ingrid Andress called More Hearts Than Mine. And she as a young songwriter just speaks to me. I like all the women. The women are my deal. So, and I'm like, Ingrid? And so the night I'm hosting, I have Martina McBride and I have Ingrid. And in both cases, in between some stuff, I got to come out and sit in the audience so I could see. And my best friends are there. Tyler's there. And at one point, both of them said they picked songs that I had loved of theirs that they knew and said, I'm here because of Jen, or I picked this song because of Jen. And I left my body. I left my body. I elevated up out of my body and floated in the rafters of the Grand Ole Opry and looked down and went, what the hell is going on? I did not stop smiling for 24 hours. I could not come down. I just, in my life. So that was it. And that was the very beginning too. That was the weekend before the book came out. And I'm like, let's just cancel the tour. I've peaked. There's nowhere to go but down.
Oh my gosh. Yet there were so many other moments, but I'm like tearing up even again. I'm a little jet lagged, so I get emotional when I'm tired. But I'm like tearing up for you in that because I know everything you went through to get to that moment, and are still in many ways going through a lot of things in that. But because a lot of times when hard things happen to us, they're not a moment that then we move on from. They stay with us.
That's right.
And so in kind of leading into that, you've talked about the book a lot, but share a little bit about, can you give like a, high level overview and then like a quick, like why you decided to write this book now?
Well, I think the best way to describe it is it's a small story within a bigger story. And the small story is kind of the shocking ending to my 26-year marriage. I got married when I was 19. We grew up together. We built a whole life. We were in ministry together. We were in nonprofit work together. And I did not obviously expect to be divorced. And so he had an affair and I found out and it was a disaster and everything crumbled overnight into just a billion pieces. So that's the small story. But the bigger story was me taking a really serious examination of what built such a faulty house. I was told, and I believed, that we had all the tools and resources to create an impenetrable marriage and have these guaranteed outcomes for our family and for our kids and for each other, and none of it worked. And I'm like, wow, let's take a look at the bricks that built this house. And so those are the big stories where I think the readers are finding the most resonance, which is like patriarchy and misogyny and purity culture and religious trauma and gender limitations and body shame and white supremacy and just all these real compromised bricks. So upon examination, I'm like, maybe it wasn't such a shock that this house crumbled. Yeah. And I think that's why readers are finding their own spot in this story. Because you could be single, you could be happily married and still go, oh, I know about religious trauma. I know how that feels. I know those messages. I know that narrative. And so I forgot the second question.
It was kind of wide now, but like that was the piece of it, of you deciding to write that to kind of, well, I'll give my own perspective on it that kind of follows through with that, right? Like I was never in a straight marriage, was never married, never divorced.
Yep.
However, I think everybody goes through a point in their life where the expectations and the things that they have tried to build, and even the things that they found identity in and power in and fame or recognition in, there is a point often, not always, but often, where all of a sudden something starts to crumble and you have to question everything, right? Like, so in the same way, I grew up, I was a pastor's kid. I was a missionary. I was an ordained pastor. I went to Bible college. I have a master's in theology. I studied C.S. Lewis and Tolkien in Oxford. Like I had the right teachers. I came from the right tribe. I followed the rules. I never touched a drug. I never had sex, nothing.
Yeah.
And I expected that when I followed the path, that then, growing up a gay kid, that then I would be healed, that I would no longer be gay. And so I followed this path of like, well, I am going to be single and I'm going to be celibate and I'm going to give my life to God in all these ways. And there were some beautiful and amazing things that came out of that. And there was also a lot of not fame, but like recognition and honor, because it was like, oh, look at JJ. He's like living like
he's the model gay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, no, before model Christian. Like,
model Christian, like, secret model gay.
Secret model gay. But it was like, because I wasn't out, it was like, oh, JJ loves God so much, he's not even interested in women and kind of thing. And then there came a point where I ended up in the hospital because of what I thought was a heart attack, turned out to be panic attack.
Of course.
And everything had to flipped on its head. And this life that I had built, that I saw, that I got a lot of praise for, I realized like wasn't serving me, and it wasn't built on bricks. It was built on, some really sinking sand. and had to figure out how to walk away from the goodness that was, or what I thought it was, to build something better. And that's part of what I connected with in
totally,
but also in other, I mean, this has happened to you before, right? Like you.
Not my first refresh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When you decided to be true to yourself here, things fell apart. And I know you're not a prescriptive kind of person. Like, you don't come out and go, so here's what you should do because of what I did. You've never been that. But I do think there are some things that people are continuing to learn. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is that I know these things have changed, and even your theology has changed, and some of your values have changed. But what are the values that you would say have been there consistently for you that allowed you to step out in that courage and then rebuild from there?
It's true. There are some bedrock values that are worth keeping, and they're sturdy enough to hold. So like, even as you're walking through your evolution, having put so many ingredients into the soup pot that you were told to do, and then realizing at some point in your life, I actually think I'm having a heart attack. Even then, even though, you know, you've moved into a more genuine, honest, whole, aligned life, you have some of those ingredients from the soup pot that you carried forward because they're worth carrying forward. Same for me. Same for me. I've left a lot of it behind. But this is so, oh my God, I'm so sorry if this is trite, JJ. But like the things from the song that we learned at VBS, love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and gentleness and self-control, those last.
Yeah.
And those are worth building a life around. Those serve well. They serve me well. They serve my family. They serve the people I love. I think they serve my neighbors and my community. I have learned, because I've had to abandon several ships, I've learned to walk any given value, if you will, or doctrine, theology, however you want to package that, to walk it all the way to the end of its pier. All right, let's walk it all the way out. Let's play it all the way out on the ground, like not as a theory, you know, whatever. Like, play it out in real life. What is it like to stand at the end of that pier? If I get to the end of that pier, is there life on the other side of that thing? Is there life? Is there love? Because I walked a handful of those values to the end of the pier as prescribed, and I found death, I found exclusion, I found pain and suffering and grief, I found homophobia, I found racism, I found white nationalism, I found pride, cruelty. And so I only have a handful of piers now, I guess, that I'm still willing to walk down, but I find those worth walking.
I have found the same thing, because there were things, I think there was a season where like even words like faith, hope, and love felt hard for me, right? Like it was almost like that's not who I am anymore, even though you're like, totally. I am those things, and I love those things. Those are good things. But the way that I interpreted those to mean in my life, I don't feel good about anymore.
Yep.
And I kind of got rid of some of those, and then now I've gone, oh, no. Those actually are the things that obviously do remain. And totally. When you actually play them all the way out.
That's right.
And I think for a lot of people who go through this kind of moment, because I think I don't trust anybody who hasn't gone through a crisis. I just don't.
Totally.
Like, if you have not gone through hard things or pain, bless you, but we're not going to be tight, and we're not going to be close for the long period. Come back when you've gone through something.
And they will.
And they will.
The good thing about me and you getting old is now at this point, about everybody has been through it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
If they haven't, just live longer. Yeah.
Exactly. And so you get there, and then you have to go, what are the values that I hold to? And what does that then look like for me to live out?
Exactly.
And I think there's a whole new courage that needs to take place when you lean into the values at their truth, right? Like if I'm going to lean into love in its truest form, that's actually requires me to be courageous in a way I haven't been before. If I'm going to lean into faith in a way that is actually true to me, it requires a new courage. Love, hope, faith, all of those things, even hope. Oh my gosh, to lean into hope in a whole new way.
How audacious.
Is so courageous and audacious, right? And yet it costs us something as well. And so that, I think I mentioned like a little bit of the cost of what you've gone through, but like when you chose to step into the truest form of those values, what did it cost you?
Sort of the first big capsize in the life that I had built was around LGBTQ ideology, theology. And I'm 51. So like growing up, that wasn't even a conversation we had. Like, I don't remember a single sermon or lesson around like that branch of sexuality. It was just a given. This is a no. We don't need to talk about it. Like,
yeah. The only thing for me was in youth group when they told us that AC/DC, the rock band, stood for bisexuality, and if we listened to it, we would probably become gay. Like that was literally AC/DC meant it goes both ways. And they told us you need to burn your tapes because you'll become gay if you listen to AC/DC. So that's the only conversation that I had in church.
Well, I mean, listen, in their defense, you did listen to AC/DC, and look at you, you're gay.
I'm so gay because of AC/DC.
See? They made you gay after all. Like, there's something to it. Oh my God, that is so funny. I am going to laugh about that for the rest of the day. Evangelicals in like the 80s were just doing the most. Do you know what I mean? The absolute most.
Yes, we really were. We really were.
God,
Sorry,
I burned all my tapes
you, but
twice. I burned my tapes. Such a mess. I got old enough to really look at that with adult eyes and with critical thought. And not just critical thought, observational, like input. So, and of course, this is a lamppost in the culture wars. So, the older I got, this became a centric conversation because it was so easy to demonize, so easy to dehumanize, and so galvanizing for this like white Christian base. And so, once that became something out of a marginal conversation in faith circles to something more central, all I did to start paying attention and going, if I am to believe the work and the outcropping of God stuff, which says at the end of that God Pier, you should be finding love, right? Like that's his deal. Or I'll tell you, if we can get in the weeds for just like 3 minutes, I'll tell you what really began my intent reversal on whatever I had been handed to believe about queer folks. It was this. Because, at the time I was still very embedded in evangelical subculture. And so I believed, and still do, in kind of the power of God in any given life. For the power of God to step in and go, I actually, we can overcome addiction. We can overcome like a debilitating pride. We can overcome, there's a lot we can overcome with like this earnest commitment to our faith and to God and to prayer and to all the tools that work. And I've seen them work. They've worked in my life. They've worked in tons of people's lives. And I believe in it. I believe that God is powerful. So I kept thinking, Because I'm paying attention now. I'm like, nobody I've ever observed has tried harder, more sincerely, or more earnestly to become straight than gay Christians. They've done everything. They have put their own precious souls through such a ringer. And I'm like, so either we have found the one thing that has finally stumped God. He's like, listen, guy, I can't do anything with the gays. Like, I've met my match. Otherwise, our churches should literally be overflowing with all the gay people who used to be gay and now they're straight. Because they submitted themselves as prescribed. We should be flooded with the previously gay, right? Or we've got this wrong. Or we are trying to apply a very powerful force to something that God doesn't want to change. And in that process, in that alchemy, we are breaking people's hearts and minds and bodies and souls and futures and families. And that's where I landed. I'm like, I don't think God stumped on this one. I think we've got it wrong. And then, of course, as you know, there's robust, rigorous theological academia around this. There's plenty of ways to interpret what the Bible says about sexuality. So anyway, once I made my peace on that and knew I cannot look myself in the mirror for one more day without being crystal clear that I have reversed my theology on this, that I am going to repent for whatever contribution I made to the brokenhearted nature of all the Christian queer people that I love and that are in my world, in the world, period. I also knew I was going to hand over my career as I knew it. And I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Your books got taken out of the bookstores. You got blacklisted from conferences. You couldn't speak. This was how you made your living by selling these books and speaking. And it was now gone. It was gone. Overnight. And you had that moment where you had to decide, am I going to walk this path in a true and honest way? Or because, I'll just say, you and I both know people that were or are in that industry that believe and think the same way you do, but aren't willing to count that cost. And
I can't even count how many people.
Yeah. That behind the scenes people who will tell me, I love you. But it's not time for that. It'll be too damaging. And I understand why they think that way, but also because they will. And I did too. I was dean of students at a Bible college. I was speaking I was like touring, doing camps and things like that, and all disappeared. And I had to figure out, how do I pay for food? Like that kind of, or do I shut up and keep quiet? And, this podcast is not about theology or queer ideology or identity. Yeah. But part of why I wanted to bring you on is because I think leaders in every sphere and just human beings are often confronted with this moment where they're like, let's say they're in a job where they believe the boss is abusive, and yet they are too scared to take the risk to walk away from that. Or the job that they're being asked to do requires them to tamp down some integrity in order to keep moving forward. Or they have become somebody who they don't want to be in that role. So now they are having to become more aggressive and more mean and all these things. And I think everybody that's listening either has experienced that or is going to experience that at some point in their life. So what were the things, and I've heard you speak of some of this, but what were the things then that, like, after we sit in the mire and the sadness and the hard thing, which is real, honor that, and the mourning, what were those things then that you leaned into that helped you move towards those?
Oh boy. I appreciate you, first of all, just acknowledging the cost. You paid it. You paid it big time. I paid it. That's real. There is disruptive to live in integrity. When you have built something over here that is you are now out of alignment with. So the first thing I want to say to the person listening and heard you going through that, going either in their business, in their workplace, in their church life, in their faith, maybe it's in their marriage or relationship where, red flags, right? Like, as you mentioned, and that is also a process in which you are evaluating, paying attention, watching for, listening to, considering these like alarm bells that are starting to go off. But there does come a point when you're no longer evaluating and you know, this is wrong. This is no longer right. This has run its course. This is taking me out of integrity. This is causing me, whatever. There does come a point when you know, when your body knows, your instincts know, your gut knows, your wisdom knows. And at that point, it's time. It's just time. Please listen to me and JJ. We know that making that decision is hard, scary, terrifying, and consequential. We know it. Ask us how we know. But it is so true that the life that exists on the other side of that decision, when you choose to bring yourself back into alignment and to prioritize integrity over whatever status quo you are currently in, you're going to have to just trust us and believe us that that is the life you want to live. That one. You'll get there. You will get there. I believe it. That is not being Pollyanna for me. I've seen it too many times. I've experienced it, as you said, numerous times in my own life. I've watched it. I lead women. I see it happen all the time. You will get to a life that you were only able to imagine before. And it seemed impossible. It seemed, I can't get there. I don't want to pay the price to get there. These losses are too intimidating. I get it. I will just say this, because I am now in a new iteration of myself too, having lost a 26-year marriage, which was deeply, obviously, foundational to who I was and what my life looked like and how it was structured and even the vision for my future. But guess what? This is no surprise. There were warning signs. There were red flags. I just didn't want to face them. I didn't want to face them because I didn't want to imagine what they meant. I didn't want to imagine what that might become. And so guess what? That path was chosen for me because I was not courageous enough to face it. I was not courageous enough to go, something is deeply wrong. We need to turn to this together and look at it. And maybe that would have ultimately ended in divorce anyway. I don't know. I'll never know. I didn't give it a shot. I didn't give truth-telling a shot. And so instead, I got a big, enormous bag of trauma dumped into my lap, and I had to figure it out anyway. So I say to people, choose your own path. Get in your own driver's seat and drive your own car before someone drives it for you right into a wall. Like, drive your own car. You are able and capable and strong enough and smart enough to weather the storm. You are. And that storm is temporary. And then what you get on the other side of that is a real and true life. And it is worth it. God, isn't it? Look at us.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. When you said that, like, living a life you couldn't imagine. I mean, I talked about this on the podcast earlier, but I took my family to Disneyland for the first time this year. And just saying those words, my family, like, I watched the fireworks with my husband. When I lived in Southern California for 20 years, I had Disney Pass, and I went with all of my friends and all of their kids. And I stood on Main Street so many times going, I'm never going to have this. And
I could sob.
I wept. I wept while I was sitting there holding my 8-year-old's hand and hugging my husband and going, I got the fireworks. And now this is 13 years later. You know, this was not
Stop it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it was for me. And when we're saying this too, I think what we're not saying in all of this is like, yes, everything will be rosy. Everything will be perfect. There will be no more pain. You will never struggle with anything else. But the reality is that the powerful point you made is that the signs are there. Like if your body will break down if you're not living with integrity. Your job will fall apart. Your marriage will crumble. I really believe that if those things are already there, right? Like if you're just ignoring the reality of what is real and trying to gloss it over because you're too scared, it will find its way out. And it
doesn't make it not true.
No.
Just because we don't want to face something doesn't mean that's not what's actually happening.
Absolutely. And so being able to do that, I think, and recognizing, I think as a leader, that there are moments, whether you're leading yourself or leading a team, that you recognize that there are things that you are smart enough to recognize, and you want to lean into that and trust your intuition and work to live with integrity. Because when you don't, the integrity will come out in other ways, meaning like the truth will come to light later, and then you have to deal with a whole different thing.
That's exactly right.
And as we're kind of wrapping this up here, I mean, I could honestly, you and I could talk about this for hours and hours
10,000 hours.
Mm-hmm. But the thing too of like, so this is part of the softy and badass part. Be honest about where you are and live in integrity. That feels like a softy thing. Like, it's like, well, I want to like live in integrity. And it's like, no, it's actually, that's pretty badass when you actually go, I'm going to align my actions with my beliefs in a way that may cost me something. That's badass. It also softy, but it's badass. And then the other part too, that I just want to honor in all of this in you, is I have watched you go through hard things, kind of almost like disappear, and not in I don't mean that negatively, but take a break from the public space for a little bit to rebuild your life privately. Yeah. And so I just say all that to say, like, Jen, I don't know. I'm kind of a little bit speechless that we get to have, I get to call you my friend, and that
is so nice.
That
is such a nice thing to say.
It just is. It's so special what I have been able to watch you do and kind of be along with you in some of it, and really just kind of behind the scenes in others. And you've inspired me on so many levels. You've inspired so many other people, and I want to thank you for sharing a bit of that story today, and challenging and encouraging people that, like, if you're living in a space where you see these red flags, don't ignore them, because the trauma will come out one way or another. And when it comes out, it's going to cost you something. That's yes, but also there is a life on the other side that can be built. Gosh,
that is just the most beautiful thing. Thank you for saying all of those beautiful words to me. Those are so kind. They're so kind. And I just received them with such a grateful heart this morning. And I feel so lucky and truly, like, fortunate. There's something really powerful about moving into your integrity and convictions, because now, like, you're my friend, and this is what I get. Like, this is what just as a reminder to anybody listening, if you're worried about the cost of living in integrity, I'll just remind you, there's a cost to staying where you're at and living out of alignment. That's expensive too. And like, you ended up in the ER, JJ, so did I. I ended up in the ER, and you're going to pay it one way or another. So you want the front edge or you want the back end? Either way, there is a cost. And so we submit to you that the cost of living in your integrity is well worth the reward. That is just the price of admission. But then you get admitted to that life that you deserve, that you have wanted, that you've dreamed of, that you're hoping for, that you're worthy of. It's worth it. We are promising you that. And I cannot thank you enough for every, like, generous thing that you just said to me. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Your story arc is really something. I mean, it is really something. And you didn't just have one little piece of your life that you were like, I'm going to need to tell the truth about this, and all the rest of this will probably stay stable, but this one piece is going to experience some turmoil. You just yard sailed. I mean, it was full yard sale. And look at you. What I will think about, I have goosebumps again thinking about you standing at Disney World with those fireworks. That is, what a good story.
It's amazing. And
you lived it.
And yet there's still so much more to write. I mean, that's like even the funnest part is like when you continue, you keep learning and keep growing and all of it. So
I only feel excited about our futures. I really do. I only feel excited about we've already done what we thought were the hardest things. It's over. Like, great.
Yeah. Bring it on. What else you got? Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Bring it on. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I love you, my friend. I am so honored that you would take this time to be here. And congrats on all the success with the book and New York Times bestseller, named Best Memoir of the Year. I mean, unbelievable. It's just kind of crazy. So thank you. Love you. And I, more than anything, thank you for being a badass softie.
All my love.
I mean, we said it a million times. We could have talked for hours. I adore Jen. She has been such an inspiration for me. And every time I talk to her, I take something away. But the thing I think I'm taking away from today's conversation is the idea that when you're in a spot where you know that you should be stepping up in a new way, whether it's to step away from a relationship or step out of a position or a role you're playing, and you're sitting there and you're recognizing this is going to cost me something. It's going to cost me my security. It's going to cost me my potentially friendships, relationships. The thing that I was reminded of today is that when you get to that point of where you know you should be doing something different, there is a cost to staying. And the longer you stay, the greater that cost becomes. The integrity and the truth will come out in your life in the end, most likely through other circumstances that are out of your control. And I was just reminded today that there are things right now in my life that I can see red flags, and I'm trying to push them away because I think, it's going to be too costly to address those right now. And the reality is there is a cost to not addressing them. And that was just a really good reminder for me today. And so I'm so grateful for Jen. Jen, thank you for coming and sharing and being vulnerable and honest, and for just being a badass softie. And for all of the badass softies out there, I want to leave you with this. May you find the courage to follow your values all the way to the end of the pier. May you understand that there is a real cost to staying put when your life no longer lines up with who you are becoming. May you discover that when you carry your integrity all the way to its conclusion, it leads not to destruction, but to love and light and a life that finally fits. And may you find your own firework moments in the new life that you build. Small at first, unexpected, and bright enough to remind you that choosing the truth is always worth it. Because we believe you can be both ambitious and kind, fun and driven, powerful and deeply human. Your leadership can inspire, your success can have soul, and your ambition can make space for everyone. That's why you're a badass softie. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. Follow and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. BadassSoftie.com is crafted by Fruitful Design and Strategy.